Each of us is a perfect world, an exact balance of energies and opposing aspects that make us who we are, regardless of the physical body we inhabit or its qualities. Because within this shell we wear, there is an impressive energy circulating, as vast as space and as powerful as the Creator himself. Within us, all opposites converge, and there is nothing that is not in complete symmetry with its counterpart. Everything bad is equated with the good, and likewise, everything feminine converges with the negative, attracting each other and causing each of these forces to seek out the other inevitably. Within every being, there is a pursuit in which all feminine energy seeks the masculine to complement itself, and thanks to that, we exist and move in the way we know. However, this pursuit that divine feminine energy has towards divine masculine energy can end up stopping. If this interaction and pursuit of divine feminine energy towards its counterpart make us exist and function the way we do, what could be the implications if that pursuit were to cease? Nothing in the world stops functioning correctly, but indeed, this pursuit can stop and end up manifesting in noticeable symptoms that let us see from our conscious side that something in us has changed its course. That is why this time we are going to explore the signs and signals that are shown in the face of this internal change of the energies that compose us. To understand from there everything related to that perfect internal balance and the variations it presents like subtle waves in the vastness of the sea that is our being. Number 1. Increased emotional awareness. Once we have begun to experience this lack of pursuit of feminine energy towards the masculine, the latter is forced to consider that source of experiences and empathy that was previously overlooked, meaning it begins to align with feelings and emotions, both its own and those of others. It is as if in a strange way overnight, one begins to live each stretch of our earthly journey to the fullest, seeing clearly every single detail that makes it up, which in turn translates into a deeper experience. In our being, this will manifest as a perfect alignment between what we are consciously and those sensations that invade us and shake us in different ways. It's like experiencing a bit of the movement that the waters of life truly cause in a person, which previously had been unconscious to us. We will see how this individual becomes more openly connected to everything generated within them, especially with the emergence of new experiences and other aspects of being. Every challenge they face will not only be approached from intelligence and consciousness, but also from the wide range of feelings and emotions their human body allows. This will completely change the perspective of the individual, opening up to understand not only the implications of the material and tangible, but also the strong energetic waves that intervene in every new occurrence. The person's spectrum of understanding will be broader, and at certain points, even if they are experiencing something similar to what they have experienced before, they will feel as if they are somehow venturing into this event for the first time. During this stage, the person may feel extremely overwhelmed because regardless of their age and previous experiences, the moment this internal event takes place will be seen as a turning point from which they will feel born into the world and all it offers. Many do not understand it, but trying to live anything from a closed position where we do not allow feelings to approach us is vastly different from the true human experience, which means our perspective and behavior will be subtly redirected towards a much more harmonious form with the universe. The person will be able to more easily identify the feelings that affect those around them, truly empathizing with them and providing comfort from this new ability to feel. But this will largely be possible because of the way they now recognize what is within themselves, how certain external stimuli and those from other people make them experience at their core. When we begin to live this, that's when we understand our true impact on others, and we seek in one way or another to redress the harm we may have caused to those around us. For the person experiencing this new level of emotional awareness, it becomes possible to express their feelings more fluidly while also understanding more accurately what others express to them. The worldview of anyone can change once they discover this ability, Our bodies have to make us live intensely. Every new experience, not only from what will be etched in memory, but also from what the heart experiences. This will also translate into our growth because we will become more compassionate and empathetic beings with what happens in others and what is not visible. And even with the way certain things and events can touch the lives of those involved in them in more than one way, and of course, on more than one level. Number 2. Moments of self-reflection. A crucial part in the midst of all this event taking place within us is that mandatory pause it leads us to, from which our divine masculine energies may end up seeing the reflection of ourselves in a clear form, which obligates us to evaluate many aspects of our being. This occurs as if suddenly we open our eyes to a mirror, when in the past we had never been able to see the true shape we have, but more than a superficial mirror. This can be the catalyst for us to contemplate the parts of ourselves that are found in the deepest layers. It is a discovery of ourselves as we had never dared to live in the past, or even that we had censored from our consciousness. We all have parts of ourselves that we dare not explore due to the strong reluctance we have to see ourselves in that true form we possess, largely due to our insistence on idealizing ourselves in the way we would like to be. But our true form often does not coincide with what we actually are in practice, which is why instead of dealing with it, we focus on looking the other way and painting ourselves in a way that is in line with those social ideas that are handled in humanity. It is thanks to this lack of search for feminine energy towards the masculine that we end up seeing clearly what we really are and not what we should be, which leads us to understand and accept ourselves better, thus unlocking all the abilities and gifts we have at our disposal. With a clear vision of what composes us, we manage to unleash our capacities so that they work for the benefit of our lives, making them what our soul truly seeks. This also proportionally leads us to evaluate ourselves objectively, achieving integrity in accepting the things in which we have not acted in the best way. While everything in our journey is designed for us to evolve and perfect our soul, it is also true that we cannot overcome certain events and challenges without being consciously capable of accepting our influence on them. Within the framework of what happens externally, we all have a responsibility. Not a single one is accidental, but everything is the result of what each of us does who inhabit this plane. With greater wisdom, we will be able to detect behavior patterns in ourselves and things that until today continue to influence our lives but that we had set aside, as if they were of no importance, which we will understand is wrong and delays us in that desired evolution, even though it concerns our own being. With the arrival of this moment of pause and reflection, we will better understand the reasons that motivate us to behave in the way we do and along the paths we take. Our journey will seem to begin from that very moment, and in the midst of it, we will observe the relationships and the lines that unite everything in our reality, from people to events, being able to take advantage of it to achieve the things we seek. And although they may remain deep within us, we will come to know those traumas that have not led us to react in the ways we know we have, discarding from there everything that does not align with our true essence and what we seek to be. We will cultivate that precious ability to look at ourselves, which, although challenging, is necessary and leads us to an elevation of consciousness, to that moment of evolution that our souls seek even before deciding to descend to this earthly plane. It may be overwhelming, but it is imperative to accept this moment and live it to the fullest, absorbing from it all the self-knowledge it offers us. Number 3. We become more independent. Thanks to this lack of search for divine feminine energy, our masculine energy begins to contemplate the idea of independence in a way that perhaps it had never dared to contemplate before, one that speaks of the way it was granted to us as a basic tool in the development of our lives. Just as plants and animals are endowed with everything they need to survive on their own, in the same way, our being begins to contemplate the importance of self-management of our life affairs. We cannot aim to evolve or grow if we ourselves are not able to stand on our own, because ultimately it would be an impossible ambition to fulfill. Every part of our being is important, as well as our goals, but to build on those ideas, we must attend to the urgent need for independence, because if we understand that we were created with everything we need to live within us, we must recognize that we were not called to be constantly dependent on another thing, event, or even person. We have not come here to maintain dependent relationships on others or on the things we obtain, but rather we have come to build in this blessed space everything we can visualize and yearn for from the depths of our soul. As long as we understand that there are no limitations, we can remain firm in the idea that there is no process of selecting beings who know how to do certain things, and those who will never learn, and the only boundary that limits that frontier is represented by our thinking and willingness to learn. Whenever we set our minds to it, we will somehow learn everything we need to survive, and this is something that does not only occur on our earthly side, but is also a skill contemplated in our internal process, which also necessarily requires that state of independence from other things and people. It is important to understand that we were not created for dependence, neither on a physical level, nor much less on a spiritual one, where we cannot be conditioned to the well-being and work of others for our own evolution. Often this self-sufficiency on a spiritual level is translated into the ability we have to not depend on what certain cultures and people say, much less on the time in which those around me decide to awaken to knowledge and light. The determination to choose the ideals and knowledge we will follow must come from within us and our own needs, because no one has a more accurate view of what happens in this world that we contain within ourselves more than our own being. So, cultivating independence will lead us to evaluate what we believe and follow, the real reason for doing so, and it will even motivate us to discard everything that is not necessary and that in one way or another continues to keep us dependent. The need to rely on other beings and energies, as well as their approval, will no longer be necessary for us. And with this, we will have a renewed person who will let go of the fear of going against the tide. Much less will we feel afraid to express and maintain our ideas and truths, since the conviction that will be imprinted in them will make us understand that sometimes the path is solitary, but that ultimately it always leads to glory. The only support point we will recognize will be our own soul, which will give us insights to help us distinguish our true path on this spiritual path, as well as on the earthly one. But if we know how to obey our instincts and not be afraid of developing this quality of independence, we will soon be on the path to the glory that the universe holds for us. The necessary indications are within you, so let's not look outside for answers and support that are within us. But let's once and for all allow this divine masculine energy to allow our being to develop independence. Number 4, we experience the long-awaited spiritual awakening. Many have spoken of how our being seems to be completely immersed in a deep sleep from which it doesn't seem to want to awaken to see reality and what composes it in a true way. However, the spiritual awakening is an act to which all souls on earth seem to be inevitably condemned, so accepting the idea that the moment when you change your vision will come only prepares the ground for it to happen. This awakening is the precise moment when our being opens up to experience those things that surround us, and our mind expands to understand that what we observe is only the tip of the iceberg, because in the infinity of the universe, energies and aspects of reality move that are not perceptible to the human eye. From this moment on, we begin to understand the energies and the way they circulate throughout the universe, forming everything we know and what we are, because we also come to accept that we ourselves are not just organisms composed of flesh and bone, but rather we are made of the most powerful energy that exists. This is also the moment when we take everything about ourselves and start to contemplate and help it grow, opening ourselves to see the vastness of the universe and how we, like other beings, flow within it. We open our eyes to the spiritual world and understand that we are just a soul experiencing this earthly journey, but that thousands of souls and life forms are also out there existing and evolving in the same way we do. We even come to understand that there is no way we can be separate or detached from everything that happens, because from this moment on, we begin to appreciate the concept of unity in the world and perceive everything that was once foreign from the same perspective. Just as if we had been in a coma for long years and now, upon awakening, we find ourselves in a reality far different from what we have conceived. In the same way, the individual will experience this awakening. This is an important and even decisive part of our journey, to which we are all inherently condemned, but although it may be challenging, it ultimately brings great things to our lives. From this awakening, we gain awareness and knowledge that helps our soul nourish and grow. Our being is completely empowered by knowledge, and in the universe, thousands of opportunities for growth are unlocked, some of which pose the greatest challenges to our soul. But just as they put us under pressure, they end up bringing out the most beautiful aspects of our being. Life unfolds before our eyes in the most amazing way, and everything happens because of that single switch that seems to be flipped the moment we awaken in consciousness. This is a moment when the consciousness of each person who awakens is taken on a fantastic journey to the farthest reaches of itself, exploring those dark corners where we end up throwing everything we don't like about ourselves. That is to say that at the same time as we open our eyes to see the world in its true form, we also open our eyes and our understanding to what comprises us and what lies beyond the physical body we possess. This produces several important things in us, but perhaps the one we cannot stop talking about is the discovery of the interaction between our energy and that of the universe, which forces us to feel part of it and to set aside all those ideas that we are living beings placed in a place to survive, because in reality, we have a place and a connection to honor. We have a mission in the universe, and it is thanks to our awakening that we understand it and begin to honor it. Number 5. We begin to seek balance. It is not strange to think that thanks to all this new knowledge and this way in which we open ourselves to understand ourselves and the world around us, we end up conceiving balance as a central idea in our existence, as well as being powerfully called to seek it. Having a certain imbalance within us, although regular, is not our natural state, and that is part of what we understand at the moment when we begin to experience these internal changes in our being. Thanks to this process, we manage to understand that although we didn't consider it important before, balance is vital if we aim to achieve our goals and fully develop in any aspect of our lives. So, we begin to give it the dimensions and weight it truly deserves. This also pushes us to contemplate the parts of ourselves that don't have this desired balance, and that we can consciously work on to restore in the correct way. We will immediately find ourselves in the need to bring order and structure to our lives and the internal aspects that compose us. There is not a part of ourselves that is not analysed from a new criterion of consciousness, and everything that fails this check will undergo transformation, which can lead the person to present themselves in a quite different way in their journey and how they conduct themselves in the earthly plane. But even more importantly, we will see how everything within us that was in apparent chaos will end up being corrected and ordered, just as if we were hired by ourselves to accommodate what has been damaged due to the erroneous path we have been following. As it is normal to think, this will be possible at this moment thanks to the new approach we have, which we probably lacked in the past due to the reluctance of our inner self, one that now sees itself in a completely different panorama due to this lack of pursuit of feminine energy. Because although that feminine energy was responsible for maintaining the masculine energetic side in the way it was, reflecting in our form and reality, now what happens is that the being sees itself in the need to adjust completely to find balance within. This may be an overwhelming moment for us because we discover many aspects that need to be addressed and worked on. We find ourselves in the urgent need to transform, and just as a butterfly would, we begin a process that will culminate in a new state, in the midst of which we will return to well-being. And it's because balance translates necessarily into the well-being of the person. So even though chaos may be a component that doesn't leave us during this journey, our consciousness dictates that we are walking to once again restore our fullness and that state of well-being that should always accompany us. We begin to perceive things differently, and it is noticeable to us and those around us, because instead of swinging from one extreme to another, our being focuses on achieving a middle ground that can be sustained, where both poles can coexist. As we are necessarily compelled to accept that everything is necessary, nothing can be completely suppressed. Each step of this new landscape unfolding before our eyes leads us to see and accept that within us there are parts of every type of thing, that there are light and shadows, good and evil, as well as feminine and masculine divine energies. But more than just accepting it, this moment leads us to seek balance in all of it, not only allowing us that state of well-being natural to the human being, but also serving as a catalyst for our earthly experience. More harmonious ways of behaving and thinking also push us to paint things in our favour, because we know how to accept that it's not about taking everything and putting it on our side, but gradually guiding things toward us in the correct balance and form that corresponds. Number 6. We free ourselves from the ego. Much is said about the ego and how it affects us, but few truly understand its significant connotation, its influence on our lives, and how letting go helps us grow. The ego is simply that part of us that drives us to seek and give importance to external opinions and views, which, if misplaced or out of control, can profoundly affect our existence and development. The ego can single-handedly destroy a person, gradually leading them away from their true path and essence, to immerse them in a state or mould imposed by pretensions, which ultimately triggers a moment of confusion within us, in a constant conflict between who we are and who we should be according to external opinions. It also prevents us from seeing beyond the things we desire. So our minds think that if something doesn't take the exact shape we envision, it's wrong, or it ends up being a bad result of our efforts. Perhaps we may see this as something innocent, but the consequences of an unchecked ego in us point towards the devastation of our being, because while those who have let go of their ego work on their goals and objectives with willingness, acceptance and balance, those who still cling strongly to this part of us end up wasting time. If we only focus on what we desire and how we desire it, we do not give ourselves the opportunity to see everything that comes to us with love, light, and blessing. We sin in ingratitude and let ourselves be carried away by the current of trivialities into open sea. Recognizing what comes into our lives in various forms is an essential part of everything, but we cannot do it if we do not let go of the ego and these firm ideas of what should be, how it should be, and even when it should be. This leads us to think that absolute truth lies solely in our hands, and it prevents us from embracing the idea of diversity with which our Creator has designed each one of us. Because indeed, diversity is part of the principles with which we were created. We were not made to fit an exact mould or a sequence of repetition, but each one is a beautiful piece, unique in its kind, which in a perfect and strange way fits into the grand apparatus that the universe has assembled. Each one is in a different way. There are no two beings exactly alike in the world, and each soul goes through its own journey and process, in which it must rely solely on itself to overcome each and every one of the tests placed before it. While it is true that we can lean on others at certain stages of our journey, what you experience is completely unique, adapted to your needs and those parts of your being that you need to work on if you desire the elevation of your consciousness. This is something that is achieved from this beautiful process faced by those who stand before this energetic and spiritual panorama that has arrived in complete perfection. And nothing happens randomly, and even the unthinkable has a good reason to exist and unfold in time and space. And without much effort, you will notice how from one moment to another your being begins to discard many ideas, leaving behind things that were once of vital importance to our being, and you will feel that the burden you carry becomes lighter. There will be no doubt that you are being called to let go of the ego, and indeed your being no longer seeks to retain it, but lets it go in complete harmony with what it is experiencing. Number 7. Acceptance. This is a key word in our journey, and it needs no great explanation, as it simply refers to embracing what confronts us, even if we do not see it with eyes of love, because everything has a purpose, and by wanting to eradicate something from reality or from within us, we run the risk of causing everything to collapse. Things are maintained in the way they are from the existence of everything, from the conception and maintenance of every type of energy and every minute detail, because even the smallest thing holds strong symbolism and a function that goes far beyond the apparent. But the word acceptance is quite broad, and at times it is even misunderstood, because accepting something does not mean that improvement should not be sought in that aspect or in everything it entails. Every aspect of our being must be accepted, loved, and embraced, understanding that even what we dislike is necessary, and those parts we consider weak can be improved, but in the way they are exact and adjusted to what we experience at the moment. If we begin to empathize a little more with who we are and what we experience, we will understand that we are actually doing a magnificent job, and there is nothing deficient about us, because the universe unfolds in the way it should, and we react to it in the same way. A crucial part of our journey is accepting ourselves, but it is not the only thing we must contemplate. Just as, or more importantly, it is also necessary to accept the universe as it is. It is likely that with our spiritual awakening, there have been moments of profound shock upon realizing that the universe is not really what we thought, and that it operates in a way distant from what we conceived. However, despite not being what we wished or imagined in our minds, the universe has been that perfect space to inhabit where we have existed for millions of years, so we should not seek to change it, but rather flow with it perfectly. Only those who have a complete view of things truly benefit from being able to manage them in their favor. Therefore, accept what you cannot control, and work on improving everything you can, just as those who have been in this process of change do. Number 8. Transformation. Throughout this encounter, we have been exploring the aspects of this moment when everything seems to be turning within us, but if we add up each and every one of these parts, what we will achieve as a result is nothing other than transformation. We cannot go through all that has been described and remain the same person, because even energetically we are undergoing a configuration different from the usual. This calls us to see that to maintain everything related to us in balance in the face of this phenomenon, we must necessarily move and position things differently, which will come hand in hand with those needs that will continue to arise internally due to the lack of that level of feminine energy we experience. Things must always have order and balance, and when something is lacking or in a state of deficiency, our reaction is nothing other than to seek to restore that perfect equilibrium. We are pushed toward change by this event, and no one can deny it, but nor can anyone stop it. So from the new consciousness we possess, it is important that we accept this change, this precious and vital transformation. Everything that occupies us is part of a higher plan, one that leads us hand in hand toward those spaces of knowledge that our soul requires to evolve. And although most of the time this happens unconsciously, at this point, the diagram of what is happening is clearly presented to us. The reason for this is for us to see, understand, and commit to this change. Because if our inner self reflects this need for transformation, we should simply let it flow and let everything fall into place, as what we often experience is nothing more than a comfort zone where we feel a certain type of control. However, control does not really exist. What we actually feel is strong resistance out of fear of the unknown, fearing that what we lack now may lead us to fail. We must not let anything hinder this moment when our being seeks once again to put everything in balance, because in the midst of it, we are transforming, growing, and improving in every aspect. If this is a phenomenon allowed by the universe, it is simply because it serves important functions in the souls, and instead of fearing it, it is time to let everything take its natural course, supporting what we experience with confidence in ourselves and with the conviction that balance will ultimately prevail and benefit us. And if you feel that this is happening within you, I invite you to share your experience in the comments section. It would also be supportive if you give this a like, and of course share it with anyone you feel needs to become aware of what is happening within them. I hope that this and all the knowledge we share here are useful, so subscribe and invite someone to this blessed space where growth is imminent. Remember that by activating notifications, you will receive alerts for the new spaces of light and knowledge that we open to share. For now, time has come to an end, but I'll see you in a new edition. Until then, receive thousands of blessings.